Have you ever wondered what it's like to live or travel as a Latinx abroad? Well, in today's video, I am going to be sharing my 3 truths living and traveling abroad as a Latina. Hello, my name is Ashely Liliana and I am a Latinx who has lived, traveled and volunteered abroad. So in today's video, I am going to be sharing my experience living and traveling as a Latina. Now, this is not something that I really thought about when I was traveling, when I was living abroad. It wasn't until last year, 2020, where I really kind of had the time, I guess, to sit down and really reflect and think about what that experience was like and kind of reflect on what my travels were like, living abroad was like, that I kind of came up with these 3 truths, my truths, of what my experience was like living and traveling abroad. Now, I want to preface by saying that I am not speaking for the entire Latinx community. In reality, I actually filmed this video 2 times before, and both times I kind of just scratched it because I was afraid that I was trying to represent the entirety of the Latinx community, that I was trying to speak for the Latinx community, but I'm not. I am speaking solely on my experience living abroad and traveling abroad. If you ask any other Latinx in the community, you're going to get a different answer with a different experience of what their experience was like. The purpose of this video is for me to share my experience, and my hope is by sharing my experience and my story is that other Latinx people who are watching can see themselves reflected. Maybe they're like, oh, I had a similar experience, or I know, what she's talking about. Or if they are curious about traveling or living abroad, but are questioning or wondering what that experience might be like, hopefully by me sharing my experience, they might have an idea. It might give them the confidence to maybe make that leap abroad, whether it's to live, to study, or to travel. My story just gives them that push that they need and that confidence that they need to take that leap. So let's get into the first truth of my 3 truths living and traveling abroad as a Latina. The first topic I want to discuss is safety. So traveling as a Latina living abroad, one thing I've always been asked is, where are you from? And it comes from a place of kind of not knowing where to place me. When I was volunteering in Bali or living in Chile or traveling, on my own and meeting different travelers, I've always gotten this question of trying to place where exactly am I from. Sometimes I am seen as someone who might be a local, someone from a different country, a different city, a different continent. Rarely do I ever get exactly where I am from, but I think it kind of speaks to a Latinx woman traveling on her own or with others. And that is this feeling of blending in a certain city. I remember when I was traveling in Bali, a lot of the times locals would ask to take pictures with my friends who I was with, and rarely kind of overlooked me because I think that they believed that I was also a local. Or when they would ask, like, are you with them? They would kind of be shocked or surprised because they thought that I was from there or from a neighboring country. So I think that kind of speaks to safety, and this is how I relate it back to safety. When you're traveling, I think one of the things, especially as a woman, you're fearing safety, that you're going to stick out, that you almost have this invisible sign that says tourist or foreigner kind of written across your head. As a Latinx traveler, I found that I don't often feel that extra fear, that extra anxiety that some travelers do, because of this feeling that I can almost blend into my surroundings, to the city, when I'm taking public transportation or when I'm walking in the city or walking through a market. I don't feel that I stick out or all eyes are immediately drawn to me. And so I think that although it seems like this provides kind of a sense of safety and a sense of security, it's also a false sense of safety and security. I think what happens when we get too comfortable, we let our guard down, and we've become prone or victims to certain things. I've been pickpocketed in Paris, I've gotten my phone stolen in Santiago, and so of course there's always a risk, right? Whether you're in New York City or overseas, there's always a risk. But I think that this kind of idea of blending in, feeling comfortable with my surroundings because I don't stick out, almost provides a false sense of security. You let your guard down and things can happen. And so as a Latinx traveler, what I'm saying is that's something to keep in mind, that you might not be seen as a tourist or as a foreigner. You might even be passed for a local, but it's important that that doesn't hinder kind of keeping in mind of your surroundings and being aware of your surroundings. The second topic I want to discuss are microaggressions. And microaggressions are the subtle or unintentional forms of discriminations. And I've experienced microaggressions here in the United States and also overseas. And what I found is that there actually isn't a lot of a difference from the things that I've experienced, things that have been said to me, the questions that have been asked. Some of those things that I've experienced or heard overseas and, you know, in my home country are things like, your English is so good. Where did you learn English? You're so articulate when you speak English. Where were you born? Were you really, really born there? It's always the follow-up, the doubting and the questioning to your first answer to that. But those are some of the microaggressions that I've experienced overseas while I was working in New York, and also while I was in school. And I know that on the surface, it might seem like an innocent comment, and maybe there is a sense of curiosity, that there isn't harm in it, but it feels the same exact way. The way it felt, you know, in a workplace environment or at school with a friend, it's the same exact way that it felt overseas when a student, you know, asked me these questions, or when a colleague asked me these questions. It doesn't feel good. I know that's not the most articulate term or the best term to describe it, but it's this, you know, feeling, immediate reaction of shock, and something inside of you just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. It feels like you are the other, in a sense, in those particular situations. And it's because there is a underlying theme of discrimination. You know, you are not fitting into what the stereotypical packaging of what someone looks like. And so you are being questioned kind of for the answers that you're saying, or you're on the receiving end of some of those comments. And when I reflected back on those experiences over the summer when I was working on a project where I had to do some research about microaggressions in the workplace, you know, it wasn't until I kind of started thinking of other questions in terms of, there were other participants who were part of the program who were in different schools. And, you know, were they asked those questions, right? Were they asked where they were from? Were they getting pushback on their answers? Were they being, you know, commented things about the way they speak English? Were they, you know, were they told that their English is so good, or that they speak English really well? If one of the participants had said, yes, I'm from the United States, was at the end of that conversation, or was there more pushback, like in some of the interactions that I had? And I think about that a lot. Although I have no answers, I think that as you're preparing for a move abroad, or even if you're traveling maybe long term, we often get wrapped up in the logistics of everything, the places that we're going to go see, the cities, the countries, the visas that we need, the things that we need to buy, the things that we need to sell, that we forget that there's an emotional and mental component in preparing ourselves when we go abroad. And so by sharing these microaggressions, what I'm hoping is that you mentally prepare yourself, take a mental note that you might experience some form of discrimination, or worse, a form of racism when you are overseas. The last reflection is there's two parts to it: the lack of representation and the importance of representation. A lot of the times when I'm traveling, whether I was in Bali volunteering, and then I went to a few places on my own or in Chile, I hardly ever come across a fellow Latinx traveler. A lot of travelers that are coming probably from Europe, maybe also from other parts of the United States, but it's so rare to find a fellow Latinx traveler. I think from the times that I've traveled, I've maybe come across 2 in total throughout my travels. And I think that goes to show the lack of representation of Latinx travelers and people who live abroad in YouTube and Instagram, social media. I think when you think back at the toys that you played with or the movies or TV shows that you consume growing up, maybe now it's a different time, but when I was growing up, I think back to those times, I didn't see myself reflected. And I think that we're still struggling with those things today. When I look at the content that I consumed, I was following a lot of content, travel content, from people that did not look like me. They had a certain body type, they looked a certain way. And it wasn't until I actively looked and researched for Latinx travel accounts, Latinx travelers, blogs, YouTube videos, that I was starting to find more people in the Latinx community that were also doing the same things. So refreshing to see people that looked like me, that can, relate to some of the struggles or some of the experiences as a Latinx traveling, abroad as a solo traveler, as someone who's lived abroad. And so there is such an importance and such a need for representation. Even the experiences of microaggressions, discrimination overseas, it just goes to show that there is such a need for that. And I know that speaks to a larger thing. There's a lack of financial opportunities sometimes for Latinx kids who are in college to study abroad, to go teach English abroad, because it's not maybe the norm, in the Latinx community, within our families, to go teach English or live abroad. But there is such a need and such a desire for Latinx, travelers and content creators to show what life abroad is like through the perspective and through the lens of someone in the community. And so the last bit that I want to leave you on this video of my 3 truths of living and traveling abroad as a Latinx is that, yes, there might be discrimination. There might be safety, security concerns, maybe forms of racism, but representation is so important. And I think if you have that desire and that willingness and that love for travel, that desire to move or live abroad, that precedes any doubt or any fear. I hope this video helped give you an insight to maybe what it might be like for you as a Latinx. Reach out to other travelers, find them on Instagram, find them on social media, ask them what their experience has been like so you have a better idea for yourself what your experience might be like. And if you are a Latinx traveler and you have experienced either something that I've mentioned throughout this video, a similar reflection, or a completely different experience, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what your experience has been like. Please consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification button to get notified when I post my new video out next week. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Ciao.